Listen up or run for cover. Dropping knowledge from the people who have it to the people who need it. The real Brad Lee is dropping
What it is, Brad Lee back again with another episode of Dropping Bombs. Today in the studio, folks, virtually piped in. I've got a real treat for you, folks. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, have heard of this individual. He wrote a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad a while back, became basically the #1 personal finance book of all time. Folks, welcome Mr. Robert Kiyosaki.
Well, Brad, thank you. And I'm glad you're out there dropping bombs. So.
Well, I appreciate it. You know, I'll tell you, I've always wanted to get you on the podcast because you're a wealth of knowledge in a lot of different areas, not just financial. And not only that, you've been in the military. You're a tough son of a bitch, aren't you? Like most people might not know because you come across very professional and very, very freaking groomed. But I've heard you in conversations like behind stages and off to the side of panels, dude. And you're very passionate about what you think. And quite frankly, you're a tough son of a bitch. You've seen some things, haven't you?
Well, I went to military school and I'm a U.S. Marine in Vietnam twice, flew the helicopter gunship. And that's where I got my education from. It's not called passion, it's called mission. What is your purpose in life? And that's what I really loved about military school, and I loved about the Marine Corps. That's what they focused on, So it was hard returning back to the pussy-driven U.S.
So everybody obviously is familiar with you from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now that thing I've seen 100 different ways. I've seen games, board games, money games. Like how massive was that book into your life? Like before Rich Dad, Poor Dad, who were you? What were you doing?
Well, I've been an entrepreneur. When I came back from Vietnam in '73, my poor dad wanted me to go back to school and get my MBA, my PhD. And then my rich dad said, you should be an entrepreneur. And so there was a battle between rich dad and poor dad. And what my rich dad said to me says, if you're an entrepreneur, you'll never need a job. And you're a free man. And if I followed my poor dad's footsteps and became a PhD, and I do have 2 PhDs, by the way, but he said, you'd always be a slave.
Literally
to the buck, to the almighty buck. And that is, in my opinion, stupid. Why would you go for money when you could have freedom?
And let me ask you, why do you think so many people, like the majority of people, don't understand that very simple thing?
Well, because they went to school taught by people like my poor dad. Now, don't get me wrong. I love my poor dad. He was a great man, PhD, good family man. But as you know, our academic system is run by poor dads. And so is our government. And so is the Federal Reserve Bank. And so are most bureaucracies. And when you have a whole society built of academic poor dads and women, guys like us are really outcasts, and that's life, But I would rather be the outcast who doesn't need a job. I haven't had a job in I don't know how many years. I don't want one, And these guys are getting laid off right now. Most of them college professors, which I think is a good thing. They have to start where we started. They got to find out what it feels like not to have a paycheck, not to have a pension. And that's what those guys with no whats are terrified of right now. Where's my paycheck? Where's my pension? It's my generation, the boomer generation. They're screwed.
They are screwed. And let me tell you, I can never figure out why, just like in the sales industry, why are so many people afraid of commission only? When I started working, I went and got this really difficult job, and instantly I knew hard work was bullshit. Like I was getting blisters. I was getting poked in the eye. I was getting poison oak. I was making $22 an hour, which was good back then. I'm like 100 years old. And $22 an hour was like a massive job, but man, it was hard work. So ultimately I quit and said, this is bullshit. I do not like this. And I went and found a sales job, but it was commission only. Everyone said I was stupid. I ended up making 10 times what I was making at the hard job. So again, you're rich dad, poor dad. Mine was hard job, easy job. Same thing. It's like, dude, everybody thinks that you have to toil and labor and get calluses because they're so afraid of the unknown of making money. Would you agree?
Right. It's called emotional intelligence. And most academic types have no emotional intelligence because they're run by the emotion called fear, the fear of failing. And the more fear you have, the less freedom you have. See, fear and freedom are complete opposites. They're complete opposites. So when somebody tells me I'm going to lose my job, I'm saying, oh, thank you, but I don't even have one. And the thing you're talking about, you went into sales. That's the first thing I had to do. Is that when I came back from Vietnam, here I'm a Marine lieutenant. I got hired by United Airlines and all that to fly and all this, but I'd be an employee. And my rich dad said, you better have the skills. If you're a pilot, you already have those skill sets. I mean, I can fly anything. But you don't have the skill sets of an entrepreneur. I said, well, what's that require? He says, got to sell. And then I said, but I don't want to sell. So my rich dad then asked me one quick question. He says, how's your sex life? And I said, I'm not getting laid at all. And he says, because you can't sell.
Good. I want to use that.
When you're 25 years old and beautiful women, I'm into women, not guys. I mean, you can be into what you're into. But when you see all these beautiful women walking by, and it's because I'm afraid. Do you know what I mean? It's stupid. It's stupid. But the same thing, it's sex and money. If you have no money, you have no sex. You have no sex, you have no money. I mean, it's just basic.
Yeah. Hey, I have never heard it said better. At the end.
The skills. If I want to fly a plane, I need the skills. That's all. You want to be an entrepreneur, you need the skills, but they're different skills.
Yeah. So 73, you got out, you came back, you had to start selling. So you were offered a job to fly and you basically said, pound sand, I'm not doing that.
It was, I had two jobs. I could drive ships. I would have a third mate's license. I had a job with Standard Oil before I went to Vietnam. So I've been making about $400,000 a year, and a pilot probably $250,000. But as you know, you can make that a month as an entrepreneur. And
yeah, or a week or a day.
Yeah. So but you have to pay the price, right? You paid the price. I paid the price. I paid the price of going through my fear, my anxiety, no money, a boss kicking my butt every single day. Where's your sales? Where's your sales? Where's your sales? And it was painful. It was miserable. But eventually you get stronger. I get to, it's the rejection, knocking on doors. And then I go and practice on the women in Waikiki. Hi, I got the same response, beat it. But you get stronger.
You get a little experience.
Yeah. You have to go through the.
So at what point did you think up, I'm going to write this book?
It's a good question. I was a student of men in Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller. He's known for the geodesic dome. And John Denver called him the friendly genius and all that. And in 1983, I studied with Fuller 3 times, 81, 82, and 83 in the summer. And each time it was more personal development, more transformation, it was spiritual. I'm very much into the spiritual world, not religious, but it's spiritual. And so I was studying with him, and he wrote this book called The Grudge of Giants. And grudge stands for gross universal cash flow. This is in 83. And when I read that book, I understood it. It's not a good book. I don't recommend it. But GRUD stands for Gross Universal Cash Heist. And it's a thin book, but it's about how the financial and the academic system rips us off via our money. So that's why if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, lesson number one is rich don't work for money, because that's how they rip you off. And the rich don't save money, because why would you save money when you get quantitative easing and zero interest rate policy and they're printing trillions of it? So I understood it. So in '83, I understood it. And at that time, I was an entrepreneur in the rock and roll business. I was working with the bands called The Police, Van Halen, Boy George, Duran Duran. And I was having a lot of fun, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But when I read Grunge of Giants, that's when the Marine Corps came back in. And what's your mission in life? What's your purpose in life? And I realized that I kind of had to teach the world what my rich dad had taught me. And you and I are doing the same thing right now.
How did your rich dad know? Who taught him?
What was that now?
How did the rich dad know these things? Who taught him?
Well, because he didn't go to school. His father died when he was 13, and the family business fell into his lap. And then he had to take over. So he had a little small family store, but he had to learn accounting, sales, marketing. He had to learn to deal with distributors, salesmen. I mean, he got a real world education, plus the property. And so he was learning to be a real estate guy as well as an entrepreneur simultaneously. And the average academic, like my poor dad, is really quite pathetic. My poor dad entered school at 5, and they come out at 55, and they think they're geniuses. They don't know crap. They don't know anything about the real world, but they want to tell us how to run our lives. And that's this whole thing of this pandemic. I mean, how dare they tell me to shut my business down? Screw you. How dare they tell? Every time I climb in the car, it goes ding, 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 ding. I got to put on my safety belt, seat belt. Why are you telling me what to do? I call that fascism. Where somebody's always telling you how to run your life. So being an entrepreneur, that goes against every thing in my body. Why would I let an idiot tell me how to run my life? Why? So that's why I'm an entrepreneur. And they say, well, because you live in the US. I said, you do. I'm an international entrepreneur. I can run anywhere in the world I want to. Do you know what I mean?
And
they say,
and you do.
You're not a loyal American. I said, hey, I got 2 tours in Vietnam. Kiss my butt. Do you know what I mean?
Speaking of Vietnam, do you know that Vietnam has less, according to statistics, which again, most of them are made up, but they've got less than 380 cases countrywide, 92 million plus people, 300 cases. Now, is that because they're not reporting all their cases, or is that because they don't have any cases? And if that's the case, why is it that they have 92 million and have 300 cases?
Well, the same is true with Japan and South Korea and Taiwan. And I think it's because they're skinny.
So they have it. They're just not showing signs?
Well, no. One of the biggest causes for COVID to hit you is obesity, because obesity leads to diabetes. Obesity leads to all these other diseases. So I mean, I'm the target. I'm the target for COVID. I'm 73. I was overweight. I had cancer. I had heart disease, and I've had what do you call that? Pneumonia. So around 5 years ago, I decided I better shape up. Not just diet and exercise. I'd better pay attention to my health, because the only way COVID gets you if you're unhealthy, and if it does get you, you can't respond to it. So I don't mean to be a racist, but there are certain races that are more obese. What I'm talking about. So,
well, sure. There's predominantly, there's traits to certain, regions and cultures. I would say that I always tell people rice must be good for you, because you don't see any, big fat Chinese people.
Well, I'm not a doctor. I'm just observing. And when I walk around, I'm straight. But I've never seen so many fat kids. I mean, regardless of race, I've never seen so many obese kids.
Yeah.
And I go,
Now,
what's happening? Because as a Marine, you're not allowed to be fat. Do you know what I mean? They kick your butt. They put you on weight control.
or they'll stick you in the pork chop platoon.
Oh, they run your ass off. I mean, they're merciless. You know, there's no love and tenderness with the Marines. If you're a few pounds overweight, they're on you. Do you know what I mean?
Now, do you think,
that's
go ahead.
I mean, enforced discipline.
Yeah. Do you think the kids are fat nowadays because of the food that's out in the world, all the additives and crappy fast food? And do you think that is like an intentional thing?
No, I really don't. I just notice obesity a lot because I was born fat. And one of the reasons I had trouble getting, I went to military, I went to the academy, Naval Academy and Kings Point Academy. And if I was overweight, I couldn't get in there. So that meant for like 6 months earlier, I had to get in shape to get in there. Most colleges today, if you can fog a mirror, you're admitted. And most kids sit in front of a screen or game, video games. So that wasn't, I'm a lot older than you are. With us, it was football, baseball, track, and basketball. I didn't play video games.
Wrestling.
I was in Taekwondo. So anyway,
I didn't wrestle because I didn't like to roll around and get sweaty with dudes. But now that you look back, the wrestlers are the ones kicking everyone's ass in MMA.
Correct. It's mental and physical and it's spiritual and emotional health. And I think that's the reason so many kids are obese today.
So do you have any quote unquote conspiracy theories going on? Because apparently the pharmaceuticals, big pharma, basically runs the country. Now, this again could be considered conspiracy. However, that's just what the conspiracy says, which evidence shows, statistics show kids and the ingestion of sugar and the crap that they're eating nowadays that they weren't eating back then. Plus they were playing sports. They weren't on the video games, et cetera, is a intentional thing because they want everybody to be sick. Why do they want everybody to be sick? They don't want them to die. They don't want them to die. They want them to be sick. Now, why? Well, their contention is, we sell medicine to solve those sicknesses. So let's make the sugary cereal for your kids. Let's get the little rabbits to attract your children. Your children will eat that shit. They will grow up with problems and diabetes. And then we'll put little crappy stuff into vaccines. And then we'll be held harmless for the vaccine. And then we'll get you sick that way. And all of a sudden you've got a whole nation of fat kids or sick people. And now we sell more medicine. Do you think there's any truth to that?
Well, there seems to be a correlation. I'll just say this. I interviewed a guy named David Stockman, and he was Reagan's budget director. So I was on Rich Dad Radio with David Stockman. You have a chance to listen to this guy because he went to Harvard for theology. He's still got a heart. And so he ran the budget for Reagan. So I'm interviewing him, and he's saying this, we're the same generation. We're about a year apart. And he dodged Vietnam, and I went to Vietnam. But other than that, all's forgiven, But he said something. I said, so Reagan fired when the air traffic controllers went on strike. Can you imagine shutting down the whole skies of the world? Air traffic control, PATCO, Professional Air Traffic Control. They went on strike. So what Reagan did says, you're all fired. He fired all of them. He shut down all the skies over America and coming in. And you guys are too young to remember that, but that was like, holy moly, So I asked David Stockman at the end of the show, I said, okay, so you have Trump and you have Reagan. What would Reagan do differently today? Without hesitation, Stockman says, fire Fauci. He says, there's something about that guy. So I'm not saying there's a conspiracy and all this, but I kind of agree with that. What the hell is this little dweeb sitting next to Trump all the time? How has he got Trump by the short hairs? I'm not saying there's a conspiracy, but I don't know why Trump puts up with this little dweeb. Plus, he calls it kerchief lady or something. It's called, there's David Stockman, there's a Rich Dad Radio. You want entertainment and you want some a little less left-wing interview. It's David Stockman. He was Reagan's budget guy.
By the way, for all my listeners, if you guys aren't subscribed to the Rich Dad Radio Show, that's Mr. Kiyosaki's podcast, and he gets some kick-ass guests, and they have some intelligent conversation, and it is interesting, free.
Correct. And you can say anything you like. And if a guy says something, like if Stockman had said something, I had Eric Trump on the other day. You know, I mean, Eric's a friend of mine. You know, I worked with him for 8 years. We've been hunting and fishing and camping together. He's a great kid, great family. And
that says a lot about, I think, Trump or his maids and nannies, because his kids came out incredible, I think.
Look at it this way. Eric's a class act. He didn't say, and his brother Donnie, you know. I mean, we'd be sitting on this beach, no water, no showers, nothing, stinking, eating fish. That was all we had. And you get to know a guy pretty well with no, you know, I mean, we smell worse than the fish. They ask no quarter. They're just great gentlemen. I'd go up into upstate New York with them. We'd go into, you know, little coffee shops and all those. Those boys are the most respectful. That is a word. My wife says, I love the family because they're the most respectful. Yet the media makes them look like terrorists or assholes, you know. But anyway, with Eric Trump, this is why I added this at the end. I said, Biden's son is up on charges for taking too many bribes out of Ukraine and China. And Chelsea Clinton, you know, the Clinton Foundation had to fold when they found improprieties in there. It was basically, the Clinton Foundation was a pay to play. In other words, if you donated enough money to the Clinton Foundation, you got favors done for you. So that's Chelsea ran that. I think she made like $5 or $6 million a year. And Biden's son, Hunter Biden, you know, he's now up on suspicions. How is he paying off all of his tax liens? But so you look at the kids of Trump and then Biden and Clinton, that's when you see the families.
And it's important, I think. So let me back up, because you said you went to Vietnam. My mind goes a million things. While people are listening to this podcast, I'm also asking questions for myself. When you say you've been to Vietnam twice, let me ask you a question. Was it scary as shit?
At times, yeah. I mean,
cause when I watch the movies, man, is it accurate, the movies that we see about Vietnam War?
Some of them are. Some of them are extremely accurate. You know, I love that. It started Charlie Sheen. You know, that was pretty close.
Platoon.
Yeah, it was pretty close. But I was a pilot, so I had a hot shower every night.
Oh yeah, well that made a difference. But still, dude, there's a lot of those helicopters that got shot right out of the sky. Bullet went right through the bottom, right into your a-hole.
Yeah, we have a life expectancy of 30 days.
And you made 2 tours.
Yeah.
How long was each tour?
Yeah.
And what's the hairiest thing you got into?
I crashed 3 times.
Obviously you weren't captured?
No. But I was told my co-pilot, they're all white guys, you know. I said,
did anyone ever mistake you for a Vietnamese?
Well, at 6 foot and 250 pounds, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
But I used to tell my co-pilot, you know, these, you know, we used to call white guys crackers. Hey, you cracker, you know. And then we can't do that today. But anyway, you know, I said,
see, that's what I think's wrong. That's what I think's wrong with this world is, you know, and you were probably saying it lovingly, right?
Yeah, it's a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Well,
like I don't.
As soon as we get shot down, I got a pair of black pajamas back there. I'm going to put those on, and I'm going to say, white guy went that way. My co-pilot said, you probably would, wouldn't you? I said, you're damn right I would. Yeah, let me tell you something. My classmate got shot down. He spent 3 months at the Hanoi Hilton, and he's a Japanese guy like me. And I asked him, I said, did they treat you any differently because you're Japanese? He goes, no. They beat the crap out of me. Do you know what I mean? And those things that the average, then I came back from Vietnam, the second time, that's when all the protests were on, the hippies were on the streets and all this, just like they're doing today, protesting. And I got hit by rotten eggs, spit on, slingshots, calling baby a killer. And we got dumped on coming home. So it's kind of a sore spot yet. So anyway,
I bet.
Yeah.
Dude, you go over there, risk your freaking life, and then come back and there's a bunch of people that didn't go talking shit about what you were there for. And by the way, you followed orders, man. It ain't your war. You just went over there as you were instructed to. You fought for the freedoms. So now in retrospect, people are like, why were we even there? Well, dude, who knows what was going on back then, but I can promise you this, the soldiers freaking went over there and did what they were told, correct?
But more than you know. When they say band of brothers, it was a band of brothers, because there was no female combatants at that time, thank God, because guys are guys. They get a little distracted. But anyway, I'll just tell you something that most people don't know. I studied economics at military school, the Merchant Marine Academy, and the economics they teach in traditional schools are different economics, just like there's Keynesian economics and Mises economics and all this. There's different types of economics. But the economics taught in military school is we compared socialism and capitalism. So I have a question I always ask my communist friends who are on the left, who are socialists, the Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren fans and all this. And I say, how many people did socialists kill in the 20th century? And how many people did the capitalists kill in the 20th century? And the numbers are staggering. It's like we all know Hitler, National Socialist Party. He killed 18 million people, 6 million were Jews. Stalin, USSR, Socialist Republic, 26 million people. Mao Zedong, 46 million. So the reason the capitalists go to war is to fight socialism. When you think about that, you'll understand why guys like me, I volunteered I didn't have to go fight in Vietnam the second time. And I said, I'm going back because I was fighting for capitalism, not socialism. So when I came back from the second war the second time, I'm from Hawaii, and the local paper asked me what I thought. I said, hell, if I wanted to kill communists, I just come home and go to City Hall and just fire a couple of bursts and hit more communists there than I did in Vietnam. So they didn't ask me back to do any more interviews. But I hate to say this, but most of those hippies that were spitting on me and throwing eggs at me when I came back with my 16 men in Norton Air Force Base, they became school teachers or bureaucrats or union guys. And those are the guys teaching our kids today. They're communists.
Now, if I were to make a statement that said you probably can get richer faster by learning something or unlearning something, which do you think's the most impactful for most of those type of people?
That's a very observant question. It's actually both. Sometimes you have to let go of an old idea to move on. That's like with me, I have trouble with technology because I still rather use, the mail or something. But, today I've already talked to all my friends all over the world, but I had to learn to do that. And I had to forget using a letter. And that's how fast things are changing. Like, when G5 comes out, probably next month, holy mackerel, the acceleration is going to be immense. So
now, have you heard about the 5G that's running around that supposedly, again, I never know what to believe with this fucking mainstream media, but supposedly the 5G, and I've talked to actual doctors that are practicing doctors. They're not like Fauci. They're advising doctors. They're actual doctors that are practicing cellular level biology, et cetera. The one I talked to just the other day, his name is Derek De Silva, high level doctor. He said 5G will harm people. It will harm people. It destroys you at the cellular level. It's a fact. And the thing that made me the craziest, I want to get your opinion on, is the question was, is it being made for humans? Maybe 5G is actually for the machine, not the human.
Well, I've heard the same thing. The difference was, I travel constantly, and I was in China and Japan this year, and I was watching the stuff work. So there's always a plus and a minus. It's like the cell phone. They say if you put it to your ear, it's barbecuing your brain, and it might be, but I got to use it. If you know what I mean. So there's always a plus. There's always a plus and a negative. There's no such thing as all good.
Yeah.
That's the biggest mistake. Academics are the guys that teach. There's a right and wrong. Well, as Bucky Fuller would say, he'd say, well, God gave us a left foot and a right foot, not a right foot and a wrong foot. So we make progress, going left and right, making mistakes. So when people say, why are you so successful financially? It's because I've lost a lot of money. I've made more mistakes than most people have. And then I listened to this guy, Eckhart Tolle, he's one of the great spiritualists of the time. And he says, he says it this way, he says, we all have to go through a crucifixion before a resurrection. So the crucifixion is when we fail and we feel terrible, we make huge mistakes. That's the crucifixion. And you sit there and you breathe through it. You don't blame anybody. You don't say it's your fault and all this stuff. Just be present with the pain in your gut or wherever it is. And then there's the resurrection. So when I made mistakes, you know what I mean? It's horrifying. I lost my investors' money. Oh my God. But it was the crucifixion. I had to go and talk to all of them and say, I screwed up, I lost your money. But most people won't do that. But that's how I got smarter. The resurrection comes from going through the crucifixion in your guts and your ego and your vanity. And I thought, I didn't do it intentionally. I didn't want to lose their money. But when I did, I had to get humble and get my ego out of the way and then say, hey, I screwed up.
If looking back, would you do things differently, such as, number one, find a mentor that did what you're doing so you didn't lose that money? Were you just like, balls to the wall, trying everything and figuring it out? Or because I didn't have the wherewithal to seek out counsel. I just do it and learn the hard way. I got a book eventually coming out. Hopefully it'll do a fraction of what yours did, but it's called The Hard Way because it's lessons I learned the hard way. I didn't know to seek counsel. Were you seeking counsel and losing money, or were you just balls to the wall?
No, it's both. But, the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is when I was in the 4th grade in Hawaii. I asked my teacher, I said, what am I going to learn about money? And she gave me the religious thing. The love of money is the root of all evil. I said, well, it may be evil for you, but I want some money. And with that, I went to see my poor dad, my real dad. And he says, our government doesn't allow us to teach money. That's why it's not academic education in school. So I thought that was strange, 9 years old. So that's when I went to seek out my rich dad. And so the reason I got that was from Sunday school, which I flunked out of also. I'm in Sunday school and the teacher asked me this question. She says, what made the 3 wise men wise? I'm probably 8 years old. And I said, because they were rich. And one had frankincense, one had myrrh, and one had gold. And she goes, no, that's not the answer. I said, what do you mean? Frankincense, gold? She goes, no. What made the 3 wise men wise is they always sought the greatest teacher. And that story is Christ. So when I was 9 years old, I'm still in school, and my old man tells me he's not going to teach anything about money. Poor dad. So I'm in the 4th grade. I think I'll go find a teacher. And it was my best friend's father who was an entrepreneur. So when my poor dad said to me, go learn from Mike's father, I said, why is that? He said, because he's an entrepreneur. I said, what are you? I said, I'm an employee. And I said, why do you want to study from an entrepreneur? He says, entrepreneurs must know about money. Employees don't. And it's those effing employees who teach our kids.
Yeah. Folks, you better listen up to that one. My question is how do we change that? Like, we're all aware of it. Or actually, no, I would take that back. We're not all aware of it. Some people that are awake and a little bit more wise are aware of it. I've thought the same exact thing. We're teaching our kids the wrong thing. They're in the wrong environment. Like, for example, you send a kid to school and you'd think if it was a business, the kid is our customer. But a school is not ran where the kid is the customer. A school is run like the teacher is the customer.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? The faculty is the customer. Why do we start at like 7 a.m.? Like kids don't even wake up till then. Why is there no gum chewing? What if chewing gum makes you a little bit more relaxed and paying attention? You know, why are the chairs so stiff and rigid? You know, why is the kid not the customer in your thought?
Well, it's even worse than that, is that they tell you not to make mistakes. You can't learn to walk unless you fall down. And then they tell you if you cooperate, that's called cheating. Well, that's why I got through school, cooperation, but the teachers call it cheating. And then they don't teach anything about money. So the person comes out and they become a school teacher. Do you realize, I have a great family. I was very fortunate to have a very solid, non-abusive family. But all of my family are master's degrees and PhDs. They went to school at 5 and never left. They don't know anything about the real world, but they're preparing me for the real world. So that's kind of my biggest complaint, is that you've got to seek the greatest teacher. Now, the good thing is, Brad, what you and I are doing is the future. You know, I love YouTube. I've been kicked off it a couple of times, but, you know, I go ask for forgiveness and get back in there. But anyway, I go in there and the greatest teachers are on YouTube, not in school.
That's interesting. And nowadays, I'd rather learn directly from the people that built the big empire than the people that read about them and regurgitate what it is they supposedly learned. And also, you'll hear
flight school. There are combat pilots and there are instructor pilots. So when I'm the new guy, they call them FNGs, you know, FNU guys. I always look for the instructor who had certain ribbons. And I learned, because when they talked about because I was a gunship pilot, they talked about what it took to roll in and all this. And then I had a guy with no ribbons trying to tell me how to roll in on a machine gun. I said, hey, you and I, the guy with no ribbon, he knows as much about rolling in a machine gun as I do. So I want to find out from the real guys. I'll tell you one quick story. This one guy said, he says, well, the most important thing is don't lace up your boots. And this guy, you know, I said, why is that? He says, because the odds are you're going to get hit and you're going to crash in the ocean. And it says you can be the greatest pilot on earth, auto-rotate into the ocean, but when you get out, your boots will kill you because they're made of steel. They're steel boots. So I always remember that. And so I would not lace up my boots every time I went into combat. Now, it would be a problem if I had to run on land. But twice, I went down 3 times, and twice it was because I didn't lace up my boots. I'm alive today.
Damn.
I could get off.
Would you consider that a shortcut? Do you think, we always hear people say there's no shortcuts in life. I disagree. And that to me is a shortcut. Do you think there's shortcuts in life?
Absolutely. It's called intelligence and wisdom and great teachers. You know, the guys I feel for right now is I look outside in my yard, and most of the guys working hard, I hate to say that, are Hispanics, Mexicans, the greatest people on earth. But they get the short end of the stick. They're busting their ass. In Phoenix, it's 110 degrees. But they're hard-working people who know nothing about money. You know, and one of the reasons I work so hard, I create my board games and videotapes and all this stuff, is for that guy and his family and his kids. Because they're going to go to Harvard or MIT, you know. They get a bad education with their kids. So I oftentimes, every time I see my guys work in the yard, they do a great job. I work for them. And all of my work, I always remember who my customer is. It's that guy and his wife and his kids. That's who I work for.
That's right. That's right. That's a man after my own heart. One of these days, hopefully you'll be a customer of Lightspeed, and
from what I the reason I want to talk to you further is because what you do is you have the technology to make me a better teacher. That's all I care about.
100%. 100%. And you know, my mission is to exactly do that. And it's a very similar story. Funny enough, the dude was Mexican. I work at a car dealership, right? I'm in sales. I'm running the sales team. I'm getting a kid out of Burger King, turning him into a freaking $10,000 a month salesperson for making minimum wage. This kid in the back, he worked harder than everybody. He had a great kid, or great kids, great family, nicest dude you ever want to meet, busted his ass, sweating all day long for these smart mouth sales guys up front, making all the money, doing half the work, and lazy at that. And so I said, hey, let me show you how to make some money. So I took that kid and I showed him how to become a salesperson. He ended up, running car dealerships, and the money changed his life. People say, oh, money doesn't change your life. Money does change your life. And so basically, after I saw what had happened, he went from a really good guy with no money. I could see the shame in his eyes. I could see his wife show up with her head down, and their kids show up very, very, timid because they had old shoes and old clothes and whatnot. As soon as that dude started making money, dude, wife came in happy, proud. The kids came in happy, giggling, proud, new clothes. No one was bullying them. And that's what I said. I said, dude, I'm going to go teach people how to make more money.
That's
through
right.
Closing.
And you and I serve the same mission, the same purpose, the same God.
Interesting.
It's to serve our fellow human being. And that's what schools are not doing. Look at all those cheating scandals where what the movie stars are bribing to get their kids into USC and all this stuff. What's happened? What's happened to us? So education is now kind of a status symbol for rich kids. And think about this too. If you're a rich kid and your parents can afford a good education, and if you're a poor kid and you go in, you have to have a student loan debt. The kid with a student loan debt is kind of behind the 8 ball, as they say. So that's why I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and created the cash flow game. So people can be at home teaching everybody else. And then I'm working on a whole YouTube video series now to teach people at home using the cash flow game to understand financial statements. Because, financial statements, income, expense, asset, liability, which is Rich Dad's about, is the basis of financial literacy. So I just say it again, every time I see my workers out there, I'm always reminded, I work for them. That's who I work for. Their families, and for all the kids throughout the world. That's who I work for. So when I got nailed by the Washington Post as being a racist, I went, holy mackerel.
Well, let's assume the bomb squad is filled with those type of people, and there's only those type of people. What are the basic fundamental things someone needs to learn to change their life? Is it by living way below their means and investing properly the rest, or what are some tips that like anyone could start doing right now and see a little bit of a difference?
Well, let me show you. I don't know if you've seen this, but this is the basis of financial education. This is an old cash flow game, 20-something years old, but this is the real board game. It's called a financial statement. And that's the electronic version, but this is a better version because you have to fill it in by hand, your little pencil erase and all that. And so you're engaging your brain. So this is income statement. This is called balance sheet. And this is called the statement of cash flow. So there's a lot of financial statements, but these are the 3 basics.
Dude, I need your game, honestly.
Well, but look at this here. This was my poor dad. How much money am I making? And how can I reduce my expenses? This was Rich Dad, balance sheets. So when you listen to guys like me talking to the guys on Wall Street and all that, we don't talk about this thing. We talk about our balance sheets. The problem with America today, the U.S. balance sheet, all we have are liabilities now. We have no income, no assets. And so that's why 20-something years ago, my wife and I created the cash flow board game. And then we made this for, this is for adults. And this here is for guys my age, 12 and younger. It's for kids. So they actually get to play, you can't learn to play golf reading a book or a lecture. So the kids actually sit there having fun. But what they're learning about is the balance sheet. The balance sheet is what makes the rich rich. This doesn't.
Where do we get that game right now if I wanted to go buy it?
It's been there for 25 years.
richdad.com?
Yeah. And it's designed for people to teach people. And the reason I want to talk to you is if you got better technology as far as YouTube goes, I'm all over you.
Yeah, well, we do. I'll show it to you. You're gonna literally go, I didn't realize this existed. And quite frankly, we started it 20 years ago. And the reason I started it is because I quit that job to go help more people. And then I went out on the road and I couldn't do what I was doing. I couldn't figure it out. I was like, what the hell is going wrong? I just left a job where I was producing high powered people this quick. And now I'm out on the road charging, working for myself, and I can't get the same result. And I couldn't figure out why. And so I did a little research and I came up with 4 things. I came up with training, literally, is good content, repetition, practice, and accountability. And I wasn't doing those things. I was out there giving the good content, but there was no repetition, there was no practice, and there was no accountability. So I invented Lightspeed, which is the technology I'll show you, to deliver those things in a really engaging interface. And dude, it skyrocketed through the roof. And then my business started growing. And then I ran into competition where they said, well, we listened to this person or this person. And I thought, well, shit, dude, I need to go get that person on my system. So then I started licensing my system to these other, subject matter experts and personalities. And it started working better for them. And the rest was history. Yeah. So when you see it, you're going to love it because it is designed specifically to do what you're trying to do, which is end up educating. I tell people, they're like, what's the difference between this one and that one? Well, those are like hosting solutions. These host your videos. Our system gets you to learn what's in your video. See the difference? I watch mixed martial arts. Doesn't make me a black belt. But I'll show it to you because, dude, I want to make sure we focus on a couple of things. I know someone that knows you and said, ask him why he thinks silver is such a good investment.
Well, because there's 3 when you look at a balance sheet here, okay, what most people have in there are 401ks and cash. And I don't know if you know this, but the Federal Reserve, the Treasury, the T-bills, is how they steal your wealth. Every time you put your money in a Treasury bill, that's how they steal your wealth. So a Treasury bill is a thief. So that's why I say savers are losers. Now, the reason I like gold, silver, and Bitcoin is because they're outside the federal system. I've always been kind of a rebel. I don't want to be an insider. I want to be outside the Fed and the Treasury and the banking system. So every time I operate with gold, silver, or Bitcoin, any kind of crypto like Ethereum, I'm outside their system. So the reason silver is the best is I track it every day. I've been buying silver since 1964 and gold since 1973. So I'm a multi-millionaire in gold and silver, the real stuff. And I've also taken a silver mine public through an IPO in Toronto Stock Exchange. And I took a gold mine out of China through an IPO public in Toronto also. But the Chinese confiscated it because I found I made too much money. I don't like Chinese now. But anyway, but the whole point here is that gold and silver are God's money. They've been here since the earth was formed. The US dollar will be long gone before gold and silver go. We'll be long gone before gold and silver go. And Bitcoin is people's money. Again, it's outside the central bank system. So I'm a student of economics and all that. Central bank is same as communism because a centrally controlled economy is communism. So a central bank is part of a communist system. So the reason I have gold, silver, and Bitcoin is I'm operating out. Now, silver is still 50% below its all-time high. So when gold just went up to 2,000, it dropped down to about 1,900 today. But when gold takes off, silver will follow. So what they say is gold knocks on the door, but when the door opens, silver goes through it. So my biggest gain is going to be through silver now at this time. 5 years ago, it may be different.
So should I buy?
So for a person without any money, a silver US Eagle, silver, it's about $25. I don't know anybody who can't afford $25. But the people who can't are people who are saving US dollars or yen or euro or pesos or whatever they save. Paper money is fake money. And that's why I wrote this book here. Fake fake money, fake teachers, and fake assets. And so that's my whole background is actually economics. Right? I'm not an economist. So I love gold and silver and Bitcoin because they operate outside what I consider a totalitarian system called the United States.
So should I get on the stock market and invest in silver, or actually possess the unit of silver?
No, excuse me, I don't know what I did wrong here, but anyway. I only hold physical silver. I have some silver. I don't like the stock market because I've taken companies public. You know, either you're an insider or you're an outsider. So anybody that's got a stock, bond, mutual fund, or ETF or a bond, you're an outsider. I only invest in the inside. So that's why I like real estate, and that's why I like starting my own companies. So if you're gonna hold, depends. You can buy. I don't recommend it, but you can buy mining shares, and mining shares are higher leverage, but they're paper. I have some. But I've taken 2 companies public. I don't touch them. I mean, I know the stuff. I know it's manipulated. I know how they manipulate it. And that's why kind of spooky. But I wrote about it in Fake. I bought my first gold coin in Hong Kong because in 1973, it was illegal for an American to own gold. So my carrier group sailed into Hong Kong. And while other guys were chasing the wild women in Hong Kong, I was in the streets looking for gold, and I found a South African Krugerrand for about $50. And today, that South African, I still have it. It's in storage in Switzerland. That South African Krugerrand is probably worth $2,500. And then I started collecting silver coins back in 1964. So I don't know if you're probably too young, but there was Donald Duck, and there was Scrooge McDuck. And Scrooge McDuck always had this gold and stuff like this. That was my hero.
Yeah, he'd swim in it.
I have a lot of gold, but I keep it. I want everybody to know it's not at my house. It's kept in Switzerland and in Singapore because I don't want anybody to come and visit me.
Yeah, not only that, but if I had $10,000 laying around, I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. Would you recommend I go buy silver in weight, or I go to the commercials I see where the movie stars are saying, buy silver and you get this gold eagle? Is it by weight I'm buying, or is it by the coin I'm buying?
Let me think a long way to answer your question. You know the story called The Wizard of Oz?
Yes.
You know what Oz stands for?
Ounce. Is that right?
The Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
Really?
Anyway, so I buy coins by the ounce. And
so if I saw a gold eagle or a silver eagle coin, and it was like, for example, 1 ounce, and I look at the market and it's $600 an ounce, let's say, and they want, because every time I've went to look at it, it's always more than the weight. Like, in other words, silver's at 600, let's say, and I know it wasn't, but let's say 600. And then I look at the coin and it's like, okay, that should be $600, but they want $799 because it's got a gold eagle on it. Now, how do I get the silver for the price that it's going for?
Well, there's a company that sells international. It's called Lair Capital, and I speak for them. So just FYI that. But the reason I like silver today is $25. And at one time it was $50. So when you look at, and it's moving up and down, silver is more volatile than gold. But I always say to people, everybody can afford $25, but they'd rather hold on to fake money that's printed by the Treasury. And
well, is that because I haven't saw a Walmart or a grocery store take 2 ounces of silver in exchange for my groceries? That's
partly it, but that's a very good question. Instead of saving in a bank account, which most people do, dollars, I hold gold and silver in a safe. And the reason for that is the most important word is liquidity. How fast can I convert, let's say, 1 ounce of silver into $25? Probably 20 minutes. You just
How?
Just go back to the coin dealer and say, I want to be cashed out for this. It's like going to Vegas. You know, it's a chip, it's a token. That's all it is. You go up to the window and you say, "Oh, here's $100 chip. I want $100." I mean, that's as fast as it is. It's called
I know.
liquidity.
When I first moved to Vegas, I used to, pawn my shit. I'd go to the pawn shop with a gold bracelet, and they would never give me what it's worth.
Yeah.
So where do you go get where it's worth what it's worth?
Well, no, that's reputable deals and bad dealers. It's like anything else. Like you can start with, go online, check out Lair Capital. I'm not endorsing them, but
LAIR.
I trust them, But there's coin dealers all over Vegas has lots of coin dealers. But what you got to be careful about is what most if you come in and you say, I'm a FNU guy, FNG, the Marine Corps called them. I don't know anything. They're going to sell you what's called a collectible coin, a numismatic coin. So this coin would normally be $20, but because it's in 1896, it's $50. Buy the $20 one.
Yeah.
Don't touch collectible. That's like going into an antique store and buying antique furniture. You don't know anything about antiques. So always buy the coin. No antiques, no numismatics.
Right now, between gold and silver, you think silver's a better investment?
Today.
Like
I said, it's $25. It used to be 50. Gold used to be 1900. Today is 1900. Which one has a bigger run?
Silver. However, why is it worth less? Is there more of it? Nobody wants it? What's the problem?
It's the strangest thing, Brad. There's actually less silver in the world. And it's an industrial metal also. It means it's a precious metal which can be used as money. But it's industrial metal used in medicine, water purification, all batteries. As Tesla and electric cars comes up, silver's more in demand, as well as solar paneling. So silver is the supply of silver is dwindling. The problem is the futures markets, a little bit more than you need to know, controlled by like Goldman Sachs and Bear Stearns and those guys. They've suppressed the price of silver. So that's why when there's less silver than gold, less silver than Bitcoin. So the guys like me are just sitting there waiting. And then one day what they do is they sell it into the futures contract. So they sell it cheap to knock your price down today. And then they sell you these ETFs, which I don't touch. You can try, I don't like them. That's SLV and GLD. There's also GDX, which is for gold mining stocks. But it's all education, Brad. And the more you learn about it, you'll learn there's good and the bad and the ugly to the whole thing.
Would you recommend someone reading that book, Gooch? What was it called?
What's the name of it?
You said Gooch, maybe?
I don't know that book.
You had an acronym. It was gross under.
Crunch. No, I don't recommend that book. It's too abstract.
What book would you recommend? Because I get a lot of people hitting me up, and I know there's a lot of people listening right now. They've got a little discretionary income. They never know what to do with it. What confuses me about silver and gold is, like you said, savers or losers. So if I'm investing in silver so I can save it, well, I'm saving it. I'm just saving it in silver rather than in my bank account. But I can't. You say you get your money in 20 minutes. To me, it's like, if I have $10,000 worth of silver, now I got to find somebody that wants $10,000 worth of silver. And then I go to the dude that buys silver and he's like, well, shit, dude, it's only worth $600. I'm not going to pay you $600 because then I won't make any money when I move it. They're not there for free. So now you're selling it as a discount just to get the money you already had.
Yeah, but you got to look at the macro. You're looking at the micro. The macro today is back in 2008, the Fed had a debt of $850 billion. Today it's $7 trillion. They're printing more money faster than ever before. The only reason I buy gold and silver is because the Fed's printing trillions. And that used to be, when I was younger, I got 15% interest on my money. So it made no sense to own gold and silver. Today you're lucky you get 0.7%, treasury.
What about real estate?
What's that?
Real estate. You got a shit ton of real estate, don't you?
Yeah, but real estate's debt taxes, and it's not liquid. I want liquidity in my savings. So I have both. I have all of it. I have businesses and all this, but I save gold and silver and Bitcoin because they're liquid. So I find a reputable deal. I think the best book I got it on tape on Audible. It's called Why Gold, Why Now? Why Gold, Why Now? Very simple, very clear. The guy knows what he's talking about. I think his name is Cooper or something. Tucker.
Don't you have a book called Who Stole My Pension?
Yeah, that's this book here. And that's because when I came back from Vietnam, my poor dad was the head of education for Hawaii, and he ran as a Republican against his boss, the governor of Hawaii, and they took away his pension. And so there's a lot of baby boomers my age, there's no pensions. You know, CalPERS is bankrupt. The California pension system is bankrupt. Chicago's bankrupt. Kentucky's bankrupt. So the boomers are in very serious trouble. It's a $7 trillion problem, pensions.
Now, just do you think possible that the COVID was intended to affect older people, the baby boomers, because of that? You know, I don't owe you if you're not alive.
You never know there's something very fishy about COVID. And that's why I said Stockman, who was Reagan's budget director. And I said, Reagan fired all the PATCO, the air traffic controllers. I said, what would Reagan do differently than Trump? He says Reagan would fire Fauci as fast as he could. Because I think Fauci was pharmaceuticals.
And or the CDC. Like, I don't understand why everybody's wearing masks and again, first of all, Asian countries, Chinese wear masks all the time, even before this. Yeah. So and that's where it started. So you got the shit there and they wear masks every day. So we clearly understand masks don't work. And how do I know that this is really, really boiled down to compliance? I walk into a restaurant. There's a restaurant by my office. I walk in, there's people eating right there. It's a small restaurant, little hole in the wall, but good food. You walk in, there's everybody without a mask, but within the 2 feet I walk in, I need to have a mask because between here and the reception desk, I'm going to get COVID. But as soon as I sit down, which might be a foot away from there, I get to take my mask off. Same thing at the gym. I can go into the gym, but I got to have a mask on. And then as soon as I get to my workout station, I can take my mask off. So everybody's over there with no mask, breathing on everybody. And then I guess COVID stops at the reception desk because that's where you have to wear it. What is that in your mind? Why are they conditioning us to be subservient, or what is this? Who's in charge? Like the CDC, I keep hearing, in order to abide by the CDC guidelines, I'm thinking, well, who in the fuck is the CDC? And who's running that shit? And isn't the president in charge? Like, doesn't the president run the CDC? Doesn't the president run the military? Doesn't the president run shit? Like, what's happening with these masks, Robert?
Well, it's what kind of economics did you study in what school? So I was in military school. What they call mask is called fascism, where somebody's going to tell you how to run your life. You know, I know Jim Ricketts wrote The Road to Ruin and the Currency Wars and all this. And he talks about every time he gets in his car, he goes ding, 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 ding. It's everybody wants to tell you how to run your life. That's a fascist. That was Mussolini and those guys. So we have a bunch of fascists running the world. And I got nailed on YouTube because I called Fauci. I said Fauci rhymes with fascist.
Well, he flip-flops. He says masks aren't going to do anything, and now his masks are very important.
Yeah, well, you don't work for the NIH, National Institute of Health, or the CDC, and you're not on the take from the, I think he's going to make a lot of money with the vaccine. Billions. Do you think there's going to be any jail time coming? Do you think there's any, like, people about to get busted for all this manipulation and stupidity? Man, I tell you what, you and I live in a fascist world. I think we've lost our freedom. You know, like every time I get in my car, I go ding, 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 ding. Say, let me drive without my, no, you have to have a seatbelt on. you got to wear your mask. That's fascism. And fascism, Fauci, and freedom, we're all gone. So that's why I started this whole talk with you. My rich dad said to me, he said, if you never need a job, you're a free human being. And I keep my money stashed all over the world. I'm an international entrepreneur. I can run anywhere. It was by design. So, and it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. But you can, with the cell phone today, with this little baby today, I mean, you're tuned into the rest of the world, just like you're doing right now. But the only thing to you is the structure of your thought. Go to school, get a job, get good grades, work hard, save money, pay your taxes. Those are all fascists. I don't pay taxes legally, but I know the tax law. I store my money overseas legally. Don't do it illegally.
Yeah.
So many things you can do, but they'll never tell you that in school. So what you and I are doing right now is the future. And we're the new teachers. And we got to be careful. If you know what I mean.
Well, I do, definitely. And speaking of that, and I know you have to go, so let me ask you one more question before I close it down. And that is, if somebody's out there in the world, they're living pretty good, because everyone I talk to right now, even though they say half the world's out of a job, everybody I know's got money, everybody's spending, everybody's buying. Car dealers are selling more cars than they've ever sold. Our business is booming. Everybody I know, business is booming, but yet we're supposedly in a pandemic where everybody's out of a job. Now, I'm not talking about necessarily a waiter, but if you're out there and you're kicking ass right now and things are going well in spite of, what would you suggest someone does over the next 12 to 18 months? Number one, what should someone do over the next 12 to 18 months to be better prepared for what you think's coming? And then secondly, do you think that Biden and Kamala Harris have a shot in hell of getting elected?
Well, he's my buddy. He is a very good man. I spent 8 years working with him. His kids are great kids. Like I said, so Hunter Biden and Chelsea Clinton should go to jail, just like their parents. That's what I think. And Biden is much better. Biden, my God, and Kamala Harris, oh my God. So anyway, don't ask me about that one.
But do you think they have a chance? Do you think the reason I say it is not because they're good or it's warranted, because there's so many dumbasses in the world today. In the United States, I can't believe how many people are just sheepish. And now all of a sudden, the mainstream media makes Biden and Kamala Harris look great. Do you think they have a chance of winning? Because if you ask me, Trump's taking it by a landslide, if you ask me.
Well, I hope so too. But the better question is, what happens if they win? What are you going to do about it? So are you prepared for whatever happens? And that's the big. So like I said, I was talking to, I don't know if you do this, but I'm talking to my friends. Where are you running to?
Yeah, I've mentioned it twice. If Biden and Kamala Harris win, I keep saying, I'd leave, but I don't know where to. Where would someone go? Let's close it with that. Where would you go right now if you had to get out of the United States because it was going down the shitter for good? Where would you head? What town? What country?
Well, it would probably be a country like Switzerland.
Who, by the way, didn't close down. No COVID problems whatsoever.
Correct. And my money is out there anyway.
Well,
one last thing.
Yes, sir.
This is a letter called the Wellington Letter. It's written by my friend. It is the most accurate investment forecasting letter going. It's written by Bert Doman. Again, the name is called Wellington Letter. It's about $600 a year or something. But this guy is so accurate. I don't know how, he's been my friends for years. He's from Hawaii. He's my neighbor. But that guy is hated because he's so bloody accurate. And he calls it CNBS, instead of CNBC, CNBS, and he calls a spade a spade. But the beauty of him, he writes like a teacher. He doesn't write like a technical analyst. So he explains why things are moving this way and all of that. So it's called the Wellington Letter. And as we're talking about, you're always seeking the best teacher. But in my opinion, he is one of the best for forecasting what's coming down the road. It is priceless. And so there's a lot of great teachers out there. And so remember, what made the wise men wise? They didn't go to school. They sought the better teacher. So just keep doing that. And I really thank you for teaching. That's the most important thing.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate everything that you do and that you've done. If you guys want to follow him, he's at The Real Kiyosaki. You obviously know who he is. If you don't, you're under a rock. First thing I'd suggest is you need to go buy Rich Dad, Poor Dad and study the shit out of it. Read it about 38 times. Then I would go to his website and get the games for yourself and your kids. And then thank you for that last tip, because I'm going to be going and grabbing a little subscription to the Wellington Letter.
But this guy, I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he does it. He is.
And you've tracked him for a while. His record's good.
But he's educating. A lot of these guys, they're talking tech talk. Like it's like talking to a techie, or a website guy. I can't understand a word they're saying. But this guy speaks in ordinary English, explaining why and what's going to come down the road. So it not only makes you money, but it saves you money in the long run.
Well, not only that, but if it's only $50 a month, dude, that's one of those things where people have to understand it takes money to make money, and it takes money to get expertise. If this guy's got somebody like you endorsing him, he must be doing well.
Yeah, don't hold me to it, but he has so many services for different levels of people. This is the base for a guy like me. It's just the most educational piece of information I get whenever it comes out about what is around the corner.
Damn. Good tip. Mr. Kiyosaki, I thank you for your time today. I will reach out to you in the future about the Lightspeed system.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've done a lot of good for me just reading your books and following you around. I would recommend everybody on the podcast that hears this follows them, shares it with everybody. Somebody listening could be impacted by this exact conversation. And I do appreciate your time today, sir.
Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you again.
All right. Thanks, you folks. Go out and share this. And as always, keep it real.